Blackbeard is finally making his move on the One Piece. You see, most recently we finally saw him take action by going after Boa Hancock, but the small detail that we did not talk enough about was that it was only him, Katarina Devon, and Vasco Shot that was there. And the last time we saw Blackbeard make his move, he told everybody to pack their bags and get going. So the rest of the Blackbeard pirates are probably also on their own individual missions, and in One Piece chapter 1062 we seem to get a hint, because the Germa 6's cold-blooded voyage just got a lot more interesting. Up until now, the cover page story has mostly been focused on the Germa rescuing their brothers, and I'll be honest, it kind of started to feel a little empty in that it was not really gonna lead anywhere besides just showing us Caesar and the Germa escaping, kind of closing their chapter of the book. But in this chapter, things have changed, because Chocolate Town, the place where two people had arrived, which we thought were their Germa, this town has completely frozen over, and there's really only one person that could do that, and that is Aokiji. The only other possibility I can see is a non-devil fruit power, which in that case it could be Judge, but I don't really know what that would add to this cover page story besides show that he is still a dickhead, because devil fruit powers wise there's only really two people that could do that, and that was Aokiji and Monet, who's dead. So I believe what we're seeing here is Aokiji carrying out his part of the mission for the Blackbeard pirates in invading Whole Cake Island. Now if that is the case, there should be another person with him as well, and a lot of people have speculated that is Lafitte, and honestly that makes a lot of sense. Aokiji would essentially be the muscle for this mission, and Lafitte would be the person that Blackbeard trusts to really carry out the mission, to sneak them into Whole Cake Island as well, and to watch over Aokiji. Now as a counter argument, some people have said that it wouldn't make sense for Kuzan to just completely freeze up these innocent citizens, and to that I say, I think you're giving him a little too much credit. This is the man that killed his friend in Jaguar D. Saul, so he has clearly shown he's got some ice in his veins and he's willing to kill somebody if he needs to. And as right now he's affiliated with a Blackbeard pirate, so he's either carrying out his mission, which he has to do, or the more popular belief is that he's undercover, which even in that case he has to gain the trust of the Blackbeard pirates, especially with Lafitte right there. Just to give a comparison, another person that was undercover, X-Drake for Sword, which Aokiji might be for as well. He literally became a pirate for years just to go undercover and probably had to do some things that he did not want to do, and even when he became a Toby Roppo member with Kaido, he was the guy that attacked Amigasa village. So even if you're going undercover, you're gonna have to do things to gain some trust, which I think Kuzan is doing. Now what's even more interesting is what their specific mission is, because I'm sure it's not just to freeze up Chocolate Town and kill some people. And with this, I think it goes back to Blackbeard finally carrying out his final plan to become the Pirate King. Not only is he trying to get really strong by just consolidating all the strongest devil fruits, but he also needs to get things like road poneglyphs and people that could read road poneglyphs. And guess what Whole Cake Island has while Big Mom is away? Both of those things. So I'm thinking what the mission here is two things. Number one, try to get Pudding so they have someone who can potentially read poneglyphs. And number two, get a copy of the road poneglyph that Big Mom has, which at this point, like everybody has. Like she is down bad. Honestly, she might still be dead. But yeah, the Germa 6 cover story just got so much more interesting. Honestly, I was ready to go to another cover page story of like reactions across the deck of the 3 billion berry men. And I'm still very excited to see that, but this cover page story has hooked me back in. But with that said, we got some even more interesting things in this chapter, and it starts with Dr. Vegapunk right away. And immediately, I love the reactions we get from the Straw Hats, with Usopp and Frankie just absolutely adoring this gigantic robot. Frankie also literally says that Vegapunk is his role model and talks about how he was there in his hometown. And I'm sure as we continue through this arc, Vegapunk and Frankie are gonna interact a lot more, especially when we meet the actual Dr. Vegapunk. More on that later. But I did find it funny that Frankie, after saying that, was just completely ignored. Besides that though, I also love how the other Straw Hats played their roles. Of course, we saw Nami was scared and Sanji was simping, but the best part for me was Robin and Zoro being the two adults in the room and being super rational and really analyzing the danger that they're in. Robin being the first person to recognize like, hey, this doesn't add up, Vegapunk is supposed to be some old man. Meanwhile, Zoro this whole time is completely on guard, ready to snipe her at any time. On top of that, we also get an interesting tidbit from Zoro where he says there's something he wants from Dr. Vegapunk. Now, initially, I was actually very confused at what this could be because Zoro is not someone that is interested at all in technological advancements, but someone in my chat during the live reaction pointed out that Zoro was probably interested in a cure for the Smile Devil Fruits, a plotline he was strongly connected to in Wano that just never really got followed through on. And I think that just makes so much sense. That has to be the right answer. It would perfectly wrap up a storyline that we didn't really get concluded in Wano, and I just don't see anything else that Zoro would want from Vegapunk that would make more sense than that. Now, as far as Dr. Vegapunk themselves go, we finally find out the truth about these Vegapunk robots. It turns out because Vegapunk is so busy, they've decided to split up themselves into 6 individual robots. And these robots are Shaka, who represents logic, who we saw in this chapter, Lilith, who is the first Vegapunk robot that we met, who straight up represents evil, and then there's Edison, who represents flair, Pythagoras, who represents wisdom, Atlas, who represents wrath, and then there's Yoke, who represents desire, who we also see later in this chapter. Now, as far as Vegapunk themselves, it seems like that person still exists as the main Stella body, and honestly, at this point, I'm a little confused whether or not Vegapunk is really an old man because the name is Stella, so we'll just have to wait and see on that. But honestly, the thing that intrigued me the most are the personalities that we saw split amongst these robots, because in my most recent Vegapunk video where I talked about Vegapunk potentially helping the Straw Hats, which you can check out right here, but in that video I really dived into what type of person Vegapunk is, and I came away with the conclusion that most likely they are kind-hearted, but they are such a scientist and they really want to see scientific advancements so much that they give in to their own desires. And that's kind of what we're seeing with these personalities, and honestly it kind of leans towards the evil side a little more, because first off, there's literally an evil personality with Lilith, and then on top of that there's desire with Yoke, who we saw in this chapter just getting so angry about not having enough budget to really work on their projects, and then there's even wrath, so there's even an angrier version of Vegapunk, and even flair kind of shows like some arrogance about them. And then the other two are mostly just based on intelligence with wisdom and logic. There's not really a cyborg in there that's like kindness or anything, and if you were to combine these 6 people, it would probably be a mad scientist. So I will say, after finding out about this information, my belief that Vegapunk is just a completely good person is a little shaken. I do think there's a possibility that when we meet the main body, Stella, that's when we'll really see Vegapunk's real personality, and that's where the kind person could be. But honestly, even if Vegapunk is more evil than I thought, I still think they're gonna end up working with the Straw Hats based on the stuff we see in this chapter. First off, even though we see some bad sides of Vegapunk with evil and desire, they're still interacting with the Straw Hats like a pretty normal person to a degree. Like if Lilith is the most evil Vegapunk could get, I think we'll be fine because she kind of just acted like Nami. And to me, it just feels like at the end of the day, the thing that Vegapunk cares about the most is technological advancement. So all of these personalities, even though there's evil and desire and wrath and flair, they all revolve around just getting better developments. So I think when Vegapunk finally meets the Straw Hats, which they will be doing because Shaka brings them in, they will start working together because Vegapunk is just going to be curious about things like the Smile Devil Fruits and curing them, or Frankie's developments, or Sanji awakening his Derma genes. I think his overall goals and interest in science is just going to overpower any of these other evil personalities that he has. And on top of that, as we see by the end of this chapter, Vegapunk is not going to be on the same side as the world government. And I cannot tell you how excited this last part of this chapter got me, because we're going to get a Lucci and Straw Hats reunion. So finally, we're going to see how far Lucci has come, because my god, I think a lot of people have been really gassing him up. At this point, I think we can all reasonably agree that Lucci has no shot against Gear 5 Luffy, but I would love to see him stack up against like Jinbei, Zoro, or Sanji to see how far he's really come, because I feel like we might be gassing him up too much. So I'm super excited to see the CP0 get involved here. I'm sure Smoker and Tashigi and Helmeppo will as well, and it just feels like this arc is going to be that perfect short arc that lasts about 30 to 35 chapters that I was really looking forward to. We're already getting so much Straw Hat interactions and exploring this fun new island, and we're starting to get some old characters return as well. At the end of the day, I think the real challenges are going to be the Seraphims, one of which we see in this chapter with the Kuma Seraphim. Now, CP0 do call this Seraphim a problem child, so I'm wondering there's something there, like whether or not it has Kuma's old memories, which we'll definitely get into a little more when we talk about Bonney. But yeah, at this point, Lucci and Smoker teaming up together is not going to be able to defeat the Straw Hats. Like, this is a Yonko crew now. So if anything, it's going to be the power of the Seraphims that we're really going to be able to see in this arc. But I feel like Vegapunks should have some countermeasures. Like, they're definitely not a dumb person. They should know that eventually the world government is just going to toss them to the wayside. But I do think ultimately what this all leads to is Vegapunk temporarily teaming up with the Straw Hats, maybe eventually joining the Revolutionary Army if they are not part of it already. There was also some discussions about Lucci, and it seemed like Rob Lucci was a little interested, but I don't think he's gonna like all of a sudden become good or anything. I honestly think the main purpose of that dialogue was to show that they know about it and that eventually they'll just spill the beans to the Straw Hats so Luffy can find out more about Sabo. Which, speaking about that, we also saw Jewelry Bonney mention that in this chapter, so she'll definitely fill in some blanks about the reverie we don't know about. And with that said, let's quickly talk about Bonney and her role in this arc as well, because we finally get some confirmations about her story. First off, we find out that Kuma is officially confirmed to be her dad, which during my live reaction I did not even react to, because honestly at that point in my head that was pretty much confirmed. As I also talked about in my last Vegapunk video, something that had recently resurfaced are Otis' old notes about Bonney, and in those notes he had literally written that Bonney wanted to talk to Vegapunk about her father. So in my mind, Kuma being Bonnie's father was pretty much already confirmed, but there is still a lot more questions. We still don't know the full relationship between Vegapunk and Kuma, especially after Bonney said in this chapter that she visited Vegapunk when she was a kid, which means that Kuma and Vegapunk have been talking together for a long time, furthering the speculation that Vegapunk is a revolutionary. I think it's also important to remember that Kuma was a warlord, so it would make sense for them to interact. But honestly, the X factor to all of this is Jewelry Bonney, because for some reason she was captured by the world government and eventually escaped. So what exactly happened there? Because it seemed like she was with Kuma for a long time and she was fine. Honestly, for the time being, I still don't think we have enough information whether the world government went after Bonnie's Devil Fruit or attacked Kuma's kingdom, but the mystery certainly continues to get more interesting. As far as this chapter goes though, it's a damn good chapter for me, but let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. Peace.